Bad news this morning for hundreds of thousands of people in West Virginia whose drinking water was contaminated by a chemical spill. We're now learning that the spill was worse than initially believed.
Crowds filled stores in West Virginia Thursday night, stocking up on everything from water to ice. Demand for the items so high, shelves were wiped clean.
9 counties are dealing with a chemical spill. It contaminated the water supply. Up to 300,000 people are being told not to touch the tap water.
Truckloads of water are being rushed to the capital of West Virginia for about 300,000 people. 9 counties are affected by a chemical spill from an industrial plant.
As residents of West Virginia line up for bottled water, many like Chase Tavares want to know why there was no state oversight of the chemical company that contaminated the local drinking water.
The source of the problem that's closed restaurants and schools is 4-methylcyclohexane methanol, a chemical that's used in coal processing. It's an oily substance that some say smells like licorice. It leaked from a 48,000-gallon tank at Freedom Industries chemical storage facility on the Elk River. About a mile downriver is the West Virginia American Water Company, which supplies 9 counties and some 300,000 people.
Well, in Charleston, I got a sense of uneasiness, to begin with, because most people understood that it was going to be a while before this really had any sort of conclusion.
When we don't have water, it creates a serious situation.
I was live on the air when this had happened.
On Twitter during the water crisis, it truly was the 7 stages of grief, because no one knew how to react.
We'd confirmed that yes, this came from the governor's office and it is a do not use order, which is different than a boil water advisory, which is, I think, what a lot of people maybe wondered at first. Is this just a boil water advisory? We get those all the time. And it quickly became clear this was not a boil water advisory. This was something much more serious.
Surprising to me, and I think surprising to a lot of people, was how susceptible that water source was. So the spill occurs on the Elk River. The Elk River is a water source for that area because it's so clean, right? And it is surrounded by a lot of dirty water. I mean, the cost of treating the Kanawha River for drinking water is exorbitant. I mean, you just, it's so dirty you can't afford to. But the Elk River is a very clean river, one of the cleanest in the East, actually. And so it's, you see how dependent then we have become as a state on our few really clean, productive water sources like the Elk River.
I think we all were in a bit of disbelief when Gary Southern, someone handed him a bottle of water during that first news conference outside the Freedom Industries headquarters, and he took a swig of water from this bottle. I think we couldn't quite believe that he'd made that kind of a blunder in the midst of all of this, and it really set the tone. That first news conference, the way it was organized, the way Gary Southern interacted with the media, that really set the tone for the way he was perceived by media and how he was perceived in the community, because people were watching that coverage live. It was unfiltered. I mean, it was the news conference. It was happening on the air for people to see, and online we were streaming it. So they saw a very unvarnished version of what was happening.
I think that Gary Southern very quickly became a scapegoat. It's hard to say who was at fault for this incident. I think that there's a myriad of people, from the people that were operating the business itself to local politicians and the county commission. Anyone who knows anything about steel industrial tanks could drive down I-79, look and see 100-year-old pop-riveted carbon steel tanks, and think that maybe they weren't the best thing to be running. To be honest with you, I didn't even know that they still had stuff in them. I thought they were just sitting there collecting a tax bill until somebody felt like scrapping them.
That localized event, it touched a third of the state, the residents. So there's a lesson in that, that the less we protect, the more dependent we become on a very, very scarce resource, and the more vulnerable then we are to to spills like this.
People didn't know. And they couldn't or didn't feel like they could trust those in positions of authority to tell them accurately what those things were. We learned through this process that there really hadn't been an oversight process for above ground storage facilities in West Virginia. And the tank bill, which turned into a law, is a step in the right direction to ensuring that there is proper oversight and continued maintenance of those facilities that hopefully will keep something like this from happening again.